so when millions are not as privileged as we are, and they're every day we see people dying on the roads, on the streets, without food, without any protection. So this is not about just how are we going to regroup and reassess and restart, but it's time for us to re-evaluate the whole value system and reconstruct the whole understanding uh, of the structure of the society itself. Just a minute. So that's the most important thing, or this is the larger picture. And to talk about entertainment, cinema in particular, where yes, like any other industry, cinema is also majorly influenced, impacted, and is suffering because of this the way this virus spreads. And in cinema, there are 4 or 5 types of people who contribute and who benefit out of this art form as a industry. So the first is the directly creative contributors into the making of a film. Like it's the writer, the director, the actor, the cinematographer, the art director, all of them. So these people are directly involved in creative contribution of a film to happen. And then we have indirectly creative contributors. Though that is a vaster, wider range of uh, a topic, or it has more people than who creatively directly contribute in creative way. This includes people who create memes and the people who put wall posters on the walls, like, where would this poster get the maximum visibility, and what kind of meme someone wants to create and put it out. So all these people are indirectly contributing to the industry in a creative way, and they benefit out of it. They live out of that indirectly, like, they take money from the film industry in an indirect manner. And there are people who contribute to the making of a film, or the industry as such, directly in a non-creative way. Say, for instance, the guy who owns the equipments, the camera, lights. This person does not creatively contribute in the making of a film, but he has invested on the equipments. And people who drive the cabs for in taking people to the shooting spots, sets. And you have our the people who work for us in the spot. They're called spot boys or production assistants, who take care of the food. And and if we are going to shoot outside, like, when you go to shoot in other cities where you don't live, and then there comes the hotels, the accommodation there, and all of that. This also includes the people who sell popcorns in theaters. So it's a wide range of people who live out of cinema, both creative and non-creative people. So this whole industry is going to be influenced by the change that has to happen now. The first thing is the choice of films, like the stories are going to change. Now we are used to making and seeing films, like, larger than life films with so many things. This is going to change worldwide. I read an article on how Hollywood is going to. It was a video article. I saw it. So it was discussing on how Hollywood will have to reassess and reevaluate the kind of films that they make. Say, for instance, the the Bond films or the Bourne films or the Fast and Furious franchise, they will not be able to go to other countries to shoot it or not immediately. So they have to change their way of looking at the writing. So should we also, because now we cannot have a large crew. We're going to have a smaller crew, which means you cannot engage in a story that's going to have a big world. So the world becomes smaller. So the choice of story will definitely be influenced by it. Like, you're going to take a micro story, like maybe a family film. Need not be a typical family drama or whatever that you say, but it will be about a few people. And the silver lining here is we will start talking about our world, our lives. It will be more representative of us. I mean, that's my wish. So when you cut down on the scale of the film, you're cutting down on the budget. When you cut down on the budget, then you have the ability, or you have the liberty. You are at liberty to do things that not necessarily will have to fetch more money to break even. So there you have the luxury of experimenting on a few things. Like, say, for instance, I had Visarani. I'm just quoting it because that's a first-hand experience for me. So when I did not have stars in the film, I was at liberty. I just wanted to tell a story, and because the budget was limited, I did not worry about dealing with the 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 business or the break even. So it was, I was able to tell the story the way I wanted, and I think that worked in my favor. And the film is what it is now because of the control in the budget and the the story that I had to choose. So that way, the stories are going to be smaller and more representative of the lands from where it is coming. Now we'll start making ethnic films, which represents the land, the people, the language that would be there. And when the downsizing happens, when you just go down to smaller stories, especially where you cannot shoot with major crowd, it's going to be a terrible hit on the the junior artists who actually create the flavor for a film. Without them, you don't get to see you. None of us notice a junior artist, like, the people who move around within the frames. You are used to see the central characters, their movement, their what they create. So this small, uh, you know unnoticeable part of a film is actually what creates the flavor of a film. How real or how unreal a film could be depends on the people who keep moving around. But we'll have to eliminate them and do a story just because to follow the protocol of the social distancing and all of that. So that is going to take a major hit. We have like more than 2,000 people, uh, registered people in that union, Junior Artists Union. There is also Theatre Artists Union, and there is also a few other people who come and act in films in that manner. So that particular sector is going to suffer a lot. And I think the next hit is going to be for those who drive. Self-driving is going to be the way. So they will have to take a hit also. A lot. These are the things. These are few who are going to be affected. And then Now comes the major thing. Everybody are predicting the theaters are not going to open very soon, and even if it opens, for people to come to theaters, it's going to take some time. And wherever in the world they're opening the theaters, they're opening with the 30% occupancy. Only 30% could sit there to watch the films. And there are drive-ins are being set up. So many things are coming up. So these are things that would happen in the near future. But as of now, we are not seeing a clear-cut date on when the theaters are going to open and when films are going to be taken to the theaters. So now we have a boom in the digital platforms, the on-demand platforms, OTT platforms, viewership. In India, 82% of OTT viewership has increased during these lockdown times. And we have a lot of new films premiering on these platforms. Today, there's a Tamil film that's getting premiere. I think this is the first Tamil film, and we had some issues over this also. So, but right now, a producer needs to save himself, and the film industry is a very, very it's an industry where there is where the raw material is of no worth until and unless it gets released and it makes some money. So all a producer for spending 10 crores or 15 crores, he'll be left with some 20 hard disks this big. That's all. And if it works, he gets back the money. If it doesn't work, he has to go away with that those hard disks. That's it. So that way, the producers. Sorry, got a call. So the producers are in a hurry to get their money back, because most of the money they pay interest for the money they invest to make films. So some of us are looking at OTT as the immediate relief. And I've been telling for quite some time that the past 2-3 years I've been saying that the future of most filmmakers would be to make films for these platforms. And this pandemic has fast forwarded it, that's it. But going on to OTT is not always or it will not be what it looks today, because this multiplex is a corporate structure, and that is now being replaced by OTT, a bigger corporate sector. So when corporates come into play, then they have their way of making things happen. And especially OTT is like an Uber ride. You don't know who the owner is. You don't know who you know the person who's taking you, but you don't pay him the money. He's being paid by the owner. This guy who's driving for does not know who the owner is. So it is a kind of a very tricky form of work relationship, where there is no personal bond, and you don't know what you should be doing or why you should be doing. None of this is known, and it is going to influence and affect a lot in terms of creative choices, the kind of films that are being made. See, OTT already has a kind of preference. They want stories that deal on the I'm just naming a few that are very popular. You can take, for instance, Narcos, or this Money Heist, or Game of Thrones, and anything to do with the overdoing violence, or the darker side of the world. there's more interest and inclination towards it, because it's a personal viewing space. You get to see, there are some times that you might feel you might not feel very comfortable watching certain things on theater, but there are certain things that you'll be comfortable watching on your laptop, or your private screening or private viewing. So that way, this gives space for more personal viewing. So they have a certain type of stories that they want to say. So that is going to influence, impact the writers worldwide. They say there's no censor for digital. They say there's no censor for digital, but uh, the sensor is implemented in a different way, and it goes through a lot of process. You really don't know who the owner is. You really don't know who's going to watch your films. You don't know whether they like the people who watch the film like your film or not. They, whether they liked it or not, you will have to rely on the, the platform to tell you whether they liked it or not. All these things are there, which will in the long run turn harmful for the art of filmmaking as such. Again, if if it goes more into that OTT space, it is going to be uh, disastrous for those who rely on uh, films in a non-creative way for their survival, especially the those who survive indirectly on cinema. So, in order to safeguard everybody's interest, it's it's very important that we now think on the the choices that we're going to make, and we'll have to just look beyond survival, so that it's like we all want to survive for the moment personally, but the larger picture should be taken into consideration while wanting to survive. There are unions that try to safeguard the interests of their people, but beyond the unions, also we need to look at people who are involved in it. So more than anything else, this is the time when we all need to come together and tell each other that we will not let down our people, and we will stand with them in whichever way possible, and we all should stay united and see what best could be done with with what limited resources we have. And the pandemic situation is very tricky, because nobody knows what's actually happening. The governments doesn't know. The scientists are trying to figure out what's happening, what should happen, and all of that. So it's all very uh, confusing, and we all are lost. So this is the time we need to sit and think, and what would be, and do what would be the best for all of us. You have I think only that much I had to say. If you have any questions to ask, you can have anything to say, share. We can do it.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a really eye-opening session on how entertainment media or entertainment is going to get affected by this pandemic. So we have few questions here. This question is from Miss Nityashri V. She wants to know what are the major disadvantages of releasing films in the online streams like Amazon Prime and all.
No, see, right now, I don't find a major disadvantage kind of a thing. For Because purely talking in terms of business, um, there is one thing in. Oh, So you'll have to give me a minute. Someone has been calling me for quite some time. I'll just sign out and come back. I'll just attend the call and come back. Give me a minute.
Sure, sir. Participants are requested to post your questions in the chat box. We will start the Q&A session once the resource person is back.
Uh, Hi, participants. It's Shanti from World Vision. Even as the director has gone on a short break, I would like to say World Vision is an organization which works for children, and I lead a campaign on It Takes Every Indian to End Child Sexual Abuse. We've been hearing lots about child sexual abuse these days, and I thought it would be an appropriate time for me to just mention why we are doing this campaign is to, because from 2018 we started this campaign to end violence against children in any form. It could be child marriage, child labor, or child sexual abuse, or any sort of violence that happens with children. So, majorly, we wanted to sensitize people. Prevention is the best way to handle this at the right now, because we don't want any child to undergo any sort of trauma and then get into trouble time of getting into legal process or medical aid or anything. So we wanted all our children to be safe, and World Vision is here to reach out to people and spread the message of how important every child is and what you need to do with regard to prevention. India is a country where we are so much worked up with not talking very openly about this sort of issues. But children are very smart and intelligent, and we need to start it at a very right age of communicating age appropriate messaging to children in terms of safety, whether it is children below 13, 14 to 15 age group, or 18. So any child which is below 18 is called to be a child, and it is very important for parents or people who have younger siblings to communicate on it. Okay, back again to the speaker.
Welcome back, sir.
Sorry, I had to keep you waiting. So, see, I would say that the disadvantage of releasing here is it's a gamble. The disadvantage is the gamble. Sometimes you make a film in 1 crore and you release it in theater. It goes on to make 100 crores. Whereas a digital release, an OTT release, has a fixed amount. It's a minimum guarantee business module. You make a film for 1 crore and you can sell it for 1.5 crores or 2 crores or whatever it is, where your returns are limited but then assured. You're not going to lose anything. Whereas in a theatrical release, you could get 100 crores at the same time. You could leave with only 100 rupees after spending 1 crore. So that is there. That factor of playing a blind game is not there. So and for a filmmaker, the joy of his film being viewed by many people sitting at the same time. It's like, going to theater is like going to a place of worship. You can pray at home, it's good, but then you go to your place of worship, and then you feel the energy, you feel the collective energy of so many people watching the film. That would be the major loss, I would say, for a creative person.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Jim Reeves Samuel. He has appreciated you for all your work, and he wants to know your take on the chronic issues like malnutrition, child trafficking and child abuse, and how you would perceive them in your movie.
Uh, the malnutrition is one issue. The other two are different. And child abuse happens at home. So all of us need to be aware, and all of us need to be very, very conscious in our personal conduct and how and what we teach our kids. And we need to tell them to speak up. And also, it's a personal journey. All of us should be very careful in what we do, how we do, and whom we let the whom how much we expose the kids to, and what to what extent we can teach them. These are and child trafficking is a totally different issue. Of course, it all deals with the children, but everything has a different. Uh, it is all dealt differently. Child trafficking is something that definitely needs to be addressed, and if possible, eradicated, removed out of this whole system. But it has to deal with the not just child trafficking. Also starts with dealing with poverty and educating one generation. A generation that's well educated can reduce the next generation's child trafficking. That's how I look at it. And it's important that we address the issue of poverty and the wage system, the work ethic of the employers. All of that plays a major role in dealing with this particular issue. And making it into films, I think when it's made, then all the serious and more important political issues I'll try to address.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question is from Professor Jaswin. He has expressed his concern over the younger children taking up negative influence from the films, and he wants to know your view on making entertainment industry more socially responsible in terms of influencing the future trends in the society, especially for the younger generations.
Okay, this is a tricky question because if whatever I would say might sound like I'm trying to defend, but not just cinema, any form of art is a reflection of the society. And you stand in a mirror, put a mirror behind you, you're going to see zillions of yourself in there's going to be reflection. So that's what happens. So you put it on the cinema. I mean, you don't write from nothing. You just need you are influenced by the society. You are what the society has made you into. So my films are not just me, it's my society also. So when I'm making a film, it's about the world that I live in. And younger generation being influenced, see, if not cinema, they'll be influenced by something else. The education, of course, filmmakers have some responsibility, because I started smoking after watching cinema. Like, okay, I thought, okay, love failure na namlo damadi no ba. Okay, let's start smoking. That's how I started smoking, because that's what cinema. Sorry, that's what was portrayed on screen. So I am also a victim of that. But at the same time, I also quit smoking. I wouldn't say I quit, but for me to quit smoking, one film was very it influenced me. Like Varana Mayram influenced me, so I quit smoking. So there's always good and bad put together. More than cinema, I would say the advertisement industry is very, very, very harmful in influencing the younger generation viewers. I just recently I saw a video on how the Coke ad is not dealing with facts, but how it creates an emotion. Uh, Coke is nothing but sugar. There were some statistics in that video. I don't know if it's correct, but whatever that is said in that video, I'll just state now. It said uh, for a human being, average sugar consumption is 25 grams a day, but one bottle of Coke has 70 grams of sugar, which is like overdoing sugar, and which sugar is poison. My personal experience. After stopping sugar, my life changed so much. So that is so much in that one bottle of Coke, but the ad campaign that happens around all these cola brands is that it either stands for chivalry, it stands for speaking up your mind, it stands for youth unity and all of that. Like, it becomes a way you connect, you make friends. This is bad. And you see all these the lotions that you put on your face, they immediately see fairness cream. Why should anybody be fairer than what they are born with? What difference does it make? When did the world start believing that being fair is beauty? So these are things that affects youngsters more, I think. And my daughter's 10 years old, and she wants have a lip gloss and lip balm. So many things she's got. So these are important negative influences on people. Of course, films do influence, and filmmakers have a responsibility of being aware of what they are saying. Say, for instance, I would say being aware of, like, not excluding, okay, making an inclusive ambience within the film. The world that you create is important, and where you don't make fun or hate comments based on religion, caste, color, size. These are things that influence and hurt people, and also their ability and inability. So many things. If we are able to be careful on portraying certain people, like, you know uh, they used to be very reckless and very careless use of uh, trans uh, trans people in films worldwide. Now it started changing. It's coming on. So it's important that we realize what we say and how it's going to influence people. Uh, there are certain small, one line or a few things that stick to your head when you watch a film as a kid, and it stays with you for a long time. I remember a few dialogues that I watched in movies when I was when I was a kid. So that these are influences that stays with us, and that understanding and responsibility every filmmaker should take. I definitely agree with that.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Sharon Samuel. He is a cameraman registered with SICA. He thanks you for your valuable time and thoughts, and he wants to know if film industry can open a separate section for low budget films on a regular basis, like a OTT platform.
See, that's what is going to happen in the future, where that's happening throughout the world. You only will be able to take films with big stars and big budget. With Hollywood is replaced the big stars with superheroes and the graphics. There again, I read an article where CAA is one of the talent management companies, biggest talent management companies in the world. It has signed their first 100% animated character to their company. They will be representing that 100% animated character. So it's all become digital, and graphics and big budgeted films are going to be for theatrical release, where you have some, ipo Tamil solnona, you'll have some 10 heroes acting for a big screen, and you'll have around some 20 directors doing films for those 10 actors. It will be predominantly based on the stars actors or big directors like Shankar, Rajamouli, big names. So people would be investing on those stars to get the films done and put it on theaters. All the others, rest of us, will be making films for various platforms like OTT platforms. So you are either there on the big league, in the sense, in terms of money. So you are there, or you make films, sensible films, smaller films for OTT.
Thank you,
But
sir.
you cannot do it as an organized way of putting it. Okay, I make a small budget film, independent film, I put it on this. It's not that way. There are some independent films that has made a big impact in the mainstream also. And the very interesting aspect of cinema is, especially after it became digital, the democracy of cinema. Anybody can make a film, and if it just gets into the theater and people like it, it could become anything. So that democracy cannot be taken out by curtailing. See, if you say that small films will have an individual space for OTT, then it also means those films will not be allowed to be screened on theaters. So that restriction might work against the small film as well.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Professor Janaki. She wants to know your view on the recent chain of films released based on caste and politics.
It's I think it's just a reaction. When Ranjit made Madras or Kabali or Kala, it was he was trying to represent his people who did not have a voice for so many thousands of years, and he has a strong voice. He's politically he's got a great political clarity, and he's a politician who makes films. So that way he has made a point, and with a big star, the message that he wanted to say has been said. That's taken out well. And when a film like Draupadi gets released, it's the only difference between these two films would be the film of an oppressed and the oppressor. That's the only difference. But everybody have the right to make the kind of films that they want to make. That's it. So when we are ready to accept one type of film, we also should have to accept the other type of films, and we need representation. That's very important. Ranjit is a very, very important chapter in Tamil mainstream cinema. We can never deny his importance in terms of positioning the Dalit voice in cinema.
Thank you for the answer, sir. So the next question is from Ms. Udaya Ganeshan. With the general film distribution chain in jeopardy in Hollywood and online streaming platforms taking the lead, will it be the same in Indian film industries, and how will it affect the distributors?
It's going to affect distributors. Like already distributors are not an existing clan. We have exhibitors and distributors together. With the advent of multiplexes, the role of distributors became small. Distribution was there. The distribution wing of either an exhibitor or a producer was surviving. Now with OTT, this industry is going to take a hit temporarily. they will have to rediscover, revamp, and come up with new ideas. There's a nice video of a Dubai open air cinema a few days back. So something of that kind will have to come, and that theater distribution link will survive in a different way. Maybe not as powerful as it is now, but it will survive.
Thank you, sir. That is quite hopeful, I guess. So the next question is from Mr. Armugam K. We have witnessed so many restrictions for a creator to create his production in the past. What is your opinion that digital platform will either influence the creator or provide freedom to make his creation?
Sorry, I missed the first part of the question, please.
Yes, sir. So Mr. Armugam K states that we have witnessed a lot of restrictions for a creator to create his production in the past. So what is your take on the creative freedom that would be provided by the digital platform?
It's good to be able to say what you want to say, but then see, I told you, the censor is not in form of a certificate. You go tell them an idea, they say, sorry, we don't want to do this. Or they'll say, no, we just want to make it simple. We don't want to get into politics. We don't want to go against the government. We don't want to make any statement anti-Indian, or today that word has too many meanings. So, it's the OTT platforms, creative guys, they have a guideline and they go with it. So if our ideas and their ideas match, we get to make a film. But there are a lot of filmmakers whom I know, like, people who are making films are really happy. Like Anurag Kashyap, for one, he's very happy with the kind of freedom that he's having to make his films in OTT. So that's a good sign, because he's one guy who's been the face of alternative cinema of India to the world. So when he feels that he does not have any restrictions, then it's a good thing for all of us.
Thank you, sir. So next question is from Mr. Joseph Samuel. He wants to know the steps taken by the Directors Union or Actors Union to support the junior artist or the people who are dependent on the daily wages in the film industry during this pandemic.
They've been collecting funds, and as of now, it's only collecting funds and giving them the basic. We're trying to cope up with this the situation until this eases out. They're trying to put them on it's like a lifeline support, where they give. They're able to donate some stuff. That's it. They're collecting money and giving away their basic. They're trying to help them meet their basic needs. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Gautam Narayanaswamy. He states that in the past, the movies are influenced by producers' perception to attain a commercial success. But OTT platform is a corporate which will give more priority to the profit, still keeping the content relevant to the audience. So which do you think is an interesting content or will come out with interesting art form?
Okay, I would like to clarify one thing here. It's never been the producer's vision or idea, or an OTT's idea, whether it becomes a film that's relevant and remembered. See, I would call the success of a film in its survival, or in its influence post the release 100 days. That's what the success of a film really means. And of course, making money is important. I always say that without making money, you don't get to make the next film. So it's a filmmaker's responsibility to get back the money a producer gave him. So It's always that way. But I think it happens in with on the terms of the director and not on the terms of the producers. See, when the producers want to have their way, there are a few producers who are very good. I'm not talking about them, but in hello.
Yes, sir. Sorry for the
Yeah.
technical
Okay.
glitch.
Yeah. Okay. 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 So there are some producers who are sensible and who know what they're doing. But when most of the producers, when they try to intervene, it only spoils uh, the process of the making the film, or the film being turning out to be good. See, the commercial success of a film, as my mentor used to say, is always an accident. Balamendra sir used to say that it's always an accident. There is because when you say, for instance, there was a film called Darala Prabhu that got released as a remake of a Hindi film that got released the week before the lockdown. People were saying good things about the film. They expected the film to do well, but then a disaster management like this, they locked down the whole country and the film was shelved. That's it, done. Or you make a film and and there are few other films released with your films. Those films are better than your films. Your film is gone. Those films are not good as yours. Then you are made. So it is not just you that make your film a commercial success. It has so many other factors also. So the commercial success is not within our control. But when we talk about the director's vision or the producer's vision or the OTT's vision or their influence, we're only talking in terms of making a film a decent film, a good one.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Ms. Pavitra Bharati. She wants to know your view on the news about various actors and junior artists committing suicide due to depression and fear about the future in this industry. How would you, comprehend it or address this issue?
It's a sad thing. It's really a sad thing. But then that's the state of everybody. This morning, most of you must have seen that video. I saw it last night of a mother. That's what the news said. The mother was lying dead, and 1.5-year-old child was playing around the dead mother. She didn't know that the mother is dead. So this is happening throughout, and it's really sad that people from the industry are feeling stressed and pressurized. We could have a collective where we come out and talk and discuss about our fears and open up and say these things. Other than that, I don't know what could be done. And we need to open up to our friends more. That's what I would. On a personal level, you ask me, I would say that let's talk to our friends.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Ms. Shubda. She wants to know your view on portrayal of a particular social issue in a movie, and what are the challenges that a director might go through while trying to produce a film that shows the reality faced by a section of people.
No, particular social issue. Now, what does she want to like?
She wants to know
What does
about
she have
any
in mind?
social issue that is actually happening in the society, and when a director tries to make a film on it, what are the challenges that the director might have to go through?
See, when you're doing a film, I feel it's important not to hurt anyone's sentiments on a personal level, and but you need to point out whatever that you wanted to say uncompromisingly. You say what you want to say, but then don't make it a personal attack, or don't say it in an insensitive way. When you're talking about a calamity, give respect for those who had suffered the pain. Give respect for those who had lost their lives in the process of it. Like, when you're doing a film on a freedom movement in any part of the world, try to respect those who lost their lives for it, and don't try to, when you're putting forth your point, don't try to hurt anyone else's sentiments. Of course, if it needs to hurt someone's sentiment to get your point through, and if you really feel that it's important, that you are you have to, take it that way, then maybe you should do it, but still you need to think twice before you do such things.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Ms. Shanti Hopper. What will your message for children of the society be in general with respect to your movies?
Okay, I will only tell what I tell my daughter about my films. I tell her to watch all my films after she's 18. So only that much I want to say. Because my films are made for adult audience who can look through and find out what is right and what is wrong, and then try to understand what is said in the film. On a surface level, it could be one gangster film or one action film where people fight, kill, and there was one person who called me and said, "Sir, உங்களை நம்பி நான் வந்து என் பொண்ணை படத்துக்கு கூட்டு போனேன். என் பொண்ணு நிறைய கெட்ட வார்த்தை கத்துக்கிட்டா." And I told, "Why did you take your daughter or son? எதுக்கு உங்க பொண்ணை கூட்டு போனீங்க?" I asked him. He said, "இல்ல உங்க படம் தானே." I said, "See, it has got an adults only certificate. Why do you want to take your 5-year-old daughter into the theater?" And he told me, "இல்ல நான் வெறும் violence தான் இருக்கும்னு நினைச்சேன்." He was happy to expose his daughter to violence, but not to profanity. So that's how people think. But I would say that my films are meant for audiences who are not just biologically of adult age, but also otherwise. So I don't want kids to watch my films, and I would like them to watch the films when they are of age.
Thank you, sir. We have come to the last question of the session. We would like you to share some of your most memorable moments with your, the trainer, Mr. Balu Mahendra, sir.
Okay. See, when you're working with the when you want to work with the director as an assistant director, there's no trainer trainee. It's only mentor mentee. It's like, you just he always used to say that working with me is like being in a gurukulam. You have to surrender yourself. It took me a few years to do that, to let go of my ego. And when I first met him, I just went in and said, "Hello, Mr. Balu Mahendra." He just looked at me and said, "Come tomorrow." Only that much he did. So it's like I was actually studying in college, and I went to meet him, and from there he just, like, he paced me. He took me one step at a time, and he taught me everything. He used to show me films. Like, we both used to sit and watch films. After watching the film, he will ask me to talk about the film, and then he will talk to me about the film. What is the good part of that film? And then he will want me to write an essay on the film that we watched, that he does for all his assistants. So he literally, and then when of course I always am late. I'm not punctual. So he's very, very punctual. He'll ask me to come at 7 o'clock to his home, and I'll go by 8 o'clock. He'll be very frustrated, but he'll cook breakfast for me. We both will eat. So starting from there, and he will not let me clean my plate. He'll take the plate and he'll wash the plate, and he'll say, "You work for me, but today you are at my home and you're my guest, so you should not do this. I will do it." So he'll do that. And one thing that I will always want to do the way he does, one thing that I want to learn from him is, he has never been scared to apologize when he realizes he's made a mistake. I've mentioned this one incident in many interviews. I'll again mention it here also. There's a kid, like 14, 15-year-old boy who was working at his office at that point, and he had sent him to medical shop to buy some tablets. So he gave him 50 rupees. The boy comes and gives 26 rupees or something. And he said, where's the remaining 10 rupees? He said, no, this is what the guy gave. Oh, Balamendra sir was very upset, very pissed off, and he said, see, I know the price. Where is the 10 rupees? You tell me that you took it, I will let you go. Or else you'll have to face the consequences. This boy got emotional and he was angry. Sir, he was very angry and he said that. So he said, the last chance, you accept now, or I'm going to send someone to the shop and ask. Yes, okay, you send anybody. Now, Vikram Sugumaran, who was working at that point with Balamendra sir sent him. So he goes there and he calls the landline. I attend the call and Vikram said, I didn't know how to tell him because it became a big scene, a very, very major scene there. And I just looked at him and said, sir, sir, he's forgotten. He just was quiet for some time. And he had a Coke on the table. He poured it into a glass and called the boy. And he said, I'm very sorry. He doesn't need to say that. All he had to do was, he could have just told, he could have just told that. But he was in his late 60s, 68, 69 he was. He did not need to apologize to the kid. And the kid did not ask for apology. He just wanted to be, he just wanted to let him understand that he was telling the truth. But this man goes on to apologize. He said, I'm sorry. And then he gave him the Coke, the kudi. The boy just took the glass and he started crying. He couldn't control it. So this is the man. And I want to learn this. There is also one other thing that he says. He always says, life has always given me a second chance. I'm a very insubordinate person. I cannot take orders. I used to talk back. I used to fight with him, do all sorts of things that no assistant director does to his director. I do all sorts of crazy stuff. But every time I do this, 1 month later, he'll call me or I'll go meet him. When I go, he will not say, you won't meet me. He will meet me. And every time, the one thing that he says is, life has always given me more chances. And I'm going to give you one more chance. Make use of it. So every time he said that, and I don't know if I had actually made use of it to make myself into a better person, but he has set me certain goals to be how I need to be, as a person, as a filmmaker, as someone part of the society. So I would actually move towards those goals, I would say. That's it.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering all the questions and sharing some of the beautiful moments from your life with us. Now, I request you to give the closing remarks for the session.
Okay, see, normally every session, we get to see those who are there. And when there's a closing remark, you get to see them and okay, you've done a decent job or a bad job or whatever it is. And then you say, okay, now I'm just winding this up. Now it's like Tamil I don't know how many people are there, what you guys are doing, except for a few images I see, nothing is seen. Actually, I wanted to start with this, but I think I will finish with this. My journey as a film student started at MSW, I should say, because I think 95 or 96, they conducted a short film festival in MSW, and the jury was headed by Mahendran sir. Balamendra sir was part of the jury, and Madan Gabriel, acting department HOD of Adyar Film Institute, was the other jury member, and K.S. Ravi Kumar had sponsored the prize money, 50,000 rupees. So I had done a docu-fiction for my college project, like for my elective course project. I'd done it, and Father Rajanagam saw it and said, "There's a competition happening in MSW. You submit the film." I submitted the film. My friend Martin and I did that film, submitted it, and then we went. So 13 films had come there. So I went. We were sitting there when the prizes were announced, and third place went to some other. I forgot. So second place went to Kakkum Karangalnu or organization. They had made a film on their organization. They got the second place. And before the prizes were announced, Madan Gabriel was talking that youngsters have done beautiful work, fabulous work, and we were the only young people who had submitted the films. And when the first two prizes were like third and second were not us, then we thought, okay, Madan Gabriel first, and we were very excited. And then Balamendra sir, he spoke. He said, a jury's decision need not be a jury member's decision. We didn't understand much of it. Then, okay, Namala first, but then it went on to Udavum Karangal. Udavum Karangal, அவங்க 20 minutes short film பண்ணிருந்தாங்க. So they gave it to them. I was a little disappointed. Appo, one of the students who were organizing this came and called me, Madan Gabriel wants to meet you. Go. So போய் meet பண்ணோம். Pata, he said, who wrote the script for this? I said, I wrote it. What do you want to do in life? I knew what he wanted to ask. So I said, sir, எனக்கு சினிமால இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் தான் சார், ஆனா எனக்கு பயமா இருக்கு. இது வந்து அப்போ I was doing my second year, UG second year I was பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தேன். ஸோ எனக்கு பயமா இருக்கு சார், இது ஒரு கெரியரா எடுத்துக்கிறதுக்கு பயமா இருக்கு. If you feel this is your life, you have a great future, எதை பத்தியுமே யோசிக்காத, நீ வந்து தைரியமா பண்ணு அப்படின்னா. That was the moment that I consciously decided that I'll become a filmmaker. Until then, at least a script writer. Until that point, it was like, you really don't know what you want to do, but you're inclined towards this. But that was the moment I decided that I will start writing films, and I will start making films. This was right in front of the main building. And the Maratadila bike in Anga we were talking. So there in MSW, I decided that I'll become a filmmaker. So, thank you. And you all are into it's a nice your career, your education, all of it is going to influence the society directly, which is a good thing. What we do need not necessarily affect the society directly. Indirectly அது வந்து நல்லபடியாவும் affect பண்ணலாம், நல்லபடியா இல்லாமலும் போகலாம். But what you all are doing is going to directly affect and influence the society in a positive way. I wish you all a great and a life with a lot of clarity. Do what's good for the world and then for yourself. Thank you.